I think one thing that all three of those parables in the gospel have in common is that the one who is seeking the lost thing has a relationship to it. The shepherd has a relationship to the lost sheep, the woman has a relationship with the lost coin, and the son has the father has a relationship with, I would say, both of those sons who are terribly lost, even though one has been with him always. You know, the other day, the Rome boys were here, and one of the things that they said that really stuck with me is that it's really everybody's job to evangelize. And that's kind of what got them into doing the whole podcast business and doing what they're doing. And it makes sense. There's more people than there is just me. Like, I barely know a few people, and I will do my part to try to evangelize the best I can, but all of us really have relationships with the lost sheep, the lost coins, the lost sons out there in the world. And it's not enough for just a few ordained members to be the ones searching for them. And I think in the grand scheme, I think a lot of times looking at that parable of the prodigal son, we can see ourselves a little bit in the younger son who went away and came back. I think that's why we dare to come to church here, because we were lost and we have been found. Dare I say, maybe even sometimes we've been like that older brother who say, well, I come to church, what about this guy over here? And Henry Nouwen, he wrote this book, Return of the Prodigal Son. It's 100 or so page book. If you ever get a chance, read that. It'll tell you all about these kinds of things. But every one of us, too, should have a little bit of that father in us also. A father's heart that longs for his lost son, that looks out into the pews here and says, somebody's missing. A father's heart that is so warm and inviting that even a son who is far away feeding or wanting to feed on the food of pigs might have just a moment of clarity to say, being a slave in my father's house is at least better than this. I think oftentimes in our Catholic milieu, we get a little bit hung up on the rules, and the rules are important. The rules give us the structure to be able to live the Christian life. But man, we can get a little bit domineering over people with how we try to shove these things down people's throats. I think the reason that the younger son came back to the father, even though he was probably he was definitely embarrassed and ashamed and all the rest, you can imagine as he's walking home rehearsing that speech, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I don't deserve to be your son. Please treat me as a servant. That there must have been something inside of him that knew intimately that his father was a merciful man. I hope that that's what people out in the world encounter when they encounter us. Not that we are holier than anybody else, but that we have had mercy extended to us, and we have a little bit of that same love that we want to share with others. I know it can be a scary thing to put yourself out there and welcome people into the church. But I hope that this has actually made a difference in your life. Coming here weekend after weekend throughout all the seasons of life, of the weather, of whatever else. I hope it's so important and it's so transformative that it's contagious when people look at you. Because I can't convert the world. I mean, none of us really can. But we can at least share something of that father's love and that joy of somebody coming home. We can share a little bit of the joy of that woman who calls her neighbors and says, look, I found my coin. And that same shepherd who put that sheep on his back and rejoices that it's back with the rest of the 99. We've got to look for the lost. COVID has been an excuse for a lot of people to be lost for a long time. And then there's millions and millions of excuses on top of that. Share your joy. Share the mercy and the love that you've found in this place. Seek those who are lost.